Hi everyone. For those who are familiar with my build ratio tool, and specifically the second video that I introduced the market and all that stuff, and one more thing to mention about this to be very clear, because the Schoolhouse is going to go too, I just want to explain to those who do know scripting, just briefly give them some confidence that this is correct, that everyone's going to start their run as soon as the baker starts. When he pulls that flower and it's gone, the Schoolhouse, as you saw, that's a trigger for the Schoolhouse to start in the script. Well, the times that I provided weren't exactly accurate. Basically, every building except for the woodcutters, the vineyard, the quarry, farm, and the fishermen's. And also unexpectedly, all three mines. The remaining buildings, everything from the yellow, red, and blue, all those were off by 0.2 of a second. So just add 0.2 to all of these, and you will have the true values, with the exception of the Schoolhouse where you only add 1, so it'd be 15.5 seconds even. In the second video about this, I had about an 18-minute segment that shows the gist of the script that I wrote in order to get these rates of the buildings. In other words, how many seconds per run each is. And in this video, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to actually make my own remake version, which you can also, but you're going to have like 4 gigabytes of free space because you're going to have to install a whole bunch of crap on your computer. But basically, the reason why I want to make my own remake version, quote unquote, is to use the source code to determine the rates at which the buildings run. And I should say the stationary buildings run. That way, hopefully, we can be certain that it's correct. Because for a tool like this, we want it to be exact for obvious reasons. I'll provide this link in the video description. This is instructions by Ray, who is the current KaM Remake developer. This is a whole bunch of information and I think I can help to summarize this in just a few minutes, showing you exactly what to do. Because when I follow these instructions, I might have done something wrong, but I mean, I was able to make my own remake version. It may not be one that you can share with other people and they can play multiplayer online with, I don't know. But as far as you playing yourself, I mean, yeah, this will work. But anyway, I'll provide this link anyway because I might miss something or one of these things may apply to you that I'm not specifically saying here. I'm not interested in sprites right now to actually make my own and then pack it back into one of the game files for sprites. Okay, this is a good version. Previously, there was a compiler called Lazarus that it didn't work for R6720. I couldn't compile R6720 source code. Even with a very old version of Lazarus that I installed, it just didn't work. But for the latest versions, this seems to work and it's free. I think they only give you a year before I don't know if it expires or they're going to charge you. I don't know. But what I did was I came to this website. The link for this page is going to be from the page I just came from. You have to put a real email because they're going to email you a product key and stuff, but they're going to ask you for a phone number, so you can put like a scammer's phone number or something so you don't get calls you don't want from them or third parties that they sell your information to. But once you install that, then yes, this right here, Mad Accept, is the only other piece of software that you have to install. Right here, he mentions other software for you to install. It's not necessary. It's really not. Maybe if you are going to be making your own remake version for the long term and you want to constantly get updates, the latest changes and whatever in real time, so to speak, where you sync with GitHub, then all power to you. But for me, and I'm sure for most of you watching this, you're not interested in that. All you're interested in is just being able to go and get the code whatever year you decide to do this, or however often you want, and just manually go and download the code from GitHub. But anyway, Mad Accept is something you have to install. These two are the ones that I was telling you about just a minute ago, that they are for like syncing with GitHub. They're really not necessary, and I had problems with them. Some of them are very common problems. I just don't need the headache. But if you want to, you're more than welcome. But for this, I just want to make an important note. You're going to want this one because this is compatible with Delphi 12. And that's what this is. It says Rad Studio, but it will be when you follow the instructions and the prompts, you'll eventually get to choose between Pascal and some other language. I forgot, this was like a few days ago that I downloaded this. But whatever the case may be, when you go to install this, you want to install Mad Accept 5, and then that's it. You don't need to install anything else. I'll provide a link to this in the video description. This is the source code for KaM Remake, for the latest versions at least. If you want to get it for R6720, you're going to have to to go to this one by KaM and do whatever you want there. But again, I tried to compile this code, and no matter what compiler I tried, even if I got rid of some errors that I managed to figure out to get rid of, there were still some errors that I just didn't know how to resolve. I don't know this language at all, to be honest. I know the scripting language is just similar. It's a spin-off of this, but I just don't think that KaM is interested in answering questions for something like that at this point in time. And that would be what I'd have to do it. I have to ask him, and who knows how long it would take to be able to compile that code. But anyway, if you don't even know what GitHub is, which is very unlikely if you're watching this far, you probably know what it is. But if not, to download the code, you just click that and say download zip, and then you're going to get this, and then you're going to extract all. It's a lot of files. It's kind of ridiculous how many files that there are for this game. But this language doesn't have to be object-oriented, programmed in an object-oriented manner when they didn't have to. So that complicated things in my opinion. But anyway, I don't know if you saw what I just did. It was just there was the inner folder. I cut it and pasted it in so that the folder is now just one. This is not all the files you need, believe me, it's not. So just to save you from having to read that, there's additional files here, Pascal script submodule. If I come here and I go to source and I go to this, and then here, this is empty. It's like, what? This is the latest files, right? You saw that I downloaded it, but there's nothing in here. This is what really got me for a couple hours. I was like, what? I never did something like this before. So you have to manually go and find it. It's like it downloaded everything but that. So you have to go to source and then this. Just do the same thing. Just click on this and say download zip. And then you will get this. And it's going to be named something different. It's going to be named a whole bunch of weird numbers or whatever. But I already had this downloaded. You have to extract it once you do. And again, it's not going to be named this. It's going to be named something else. Yeah, it was named this, obviously. So you're just going to select all with Control A, as you probably know. And we're going to go put in the KaM Remake master, source, ext, and then here. And click, and then Control V. But anyway, the additional files you're going to need is to download the latest version of the remake, which is this version right here, currently, I should say. I'll provide a link to this in the video description as well. But you're going to have to install it on your computer, and you have to have the original game or the Steam version, and you have to run it at least once before you can install this. But once you do and you have these files on your computer, then you're going to, it's best to make a copy, because this is going to be like the default game that you can play with. But I just selected all and I copied it, and I just click in here and let all the files replace whatever's in here. When it asks, just say okay, let it all replace. These are part of the instructions that I showed at the beginning that Ray provided. I'm just trying to walk you through it briefly. It's really not that complicated, but there's a few things that if you don't know about it, it's going to stump you, especially if you've never done something like this before. It's kind of weird to get a whole bunch of source code, you don't know what it is, and you finally download a 3 GB compiler. It's like, what? And then after you do all that, it doesn't compile. Okay, that took a while, but finally we're at the end, so I'm just going to say replace. And then that's that. I just put a shortcut to Delphi 12 in here so that I can double click it and run it as need be. But alright, you can just click that to get rid of this. And I navigated to this folder. This is the file you want to open. You got to be very careful. You want to open this one. This might work as well, but this one never failed me. Now when you get this, it's not going to be in nighttime mode. You just come here and then you can choose, like, this is light. This is probably what you see already. But I just click that, dark. And if you want to increase the size of the font, you can't zoom in with the scroll in your mouse in this program. I don't know. Maybe you can, but I can't. I'm going to X out of this. I don't ever use that. For that, you just come to here and go to Editor, Display, and then you can change the font and stuff here. I even X out of this. I don't even need that. I just want to keep it clean. So this is the only file open. This is where the file tabs are, just like in Notepad++ or anywhere else. Anyway, I click the compile. Every time, because this is a free version, you're going to have to click OK. We're going to get some errors. It looks like we're only going to get one, because if you followed the instructions so far, this is all you should get. And this is something that Ray talks about, and that when we click OK and we get to here, you're going to have to open up this and look for this in there, just as it says. This file's in the main folder, and what you're going to have to do is say any file. so that you can see everything, and it's down here. You scroll down right here to line 52. So you can press / twice or control / that works in Delphi 12 or any good IDE for that matter. Should work. You don't have to save it per se, it's going to save when you compile, but now we can try to compile and say okay and see if we get any other errors. And we don't. You see this when it compiles, but as you can see here it says unsecure. So let me just demonstrate the difference between this. You'll notice it right away. Here it's telling you the ticks, but when you click on the units, you can actually retire the leader right now. He's gonna die. So dismiss, he dies. So it's a little different than how the normal game works, but I'm going to show you how to make it like the normal game. It's really easy. I'm just gonna go to, or I should say open up in the source, common, Knights and Merchants defaults. Just one thing you have to change. Just scroll down just a little bit and it's right here, true by default. So I'm just gonna make it false, that we don't want to be in debug mode. We want to create a normal game. And now it still says debug, but if we go to, and this is Windows saying that something was blocked. Allow on device. This is Windows 10, by the way. They have it set up that you can edit this on Linux and Mac, everything. It's just good old Windows for me though. But now you can see the ticks is gone. And when you click on the units, there's no more option to retire him. Now let me show you how to get rid of this up here, unsecure debug. It's really simple. Just so that you can have a normal looking game, you just scroll to the very bottom of this, KaM defaults. It's actually right here, these. So I can just comment this out and comment this out. And now compile it again. And now that's gone. Okay, so now with all this done, you can start to edit the game. Now the way they have all this code, it's... that's all I have to say. I know they didn't program this. They didn't know exactly every component they needed to code this from the start and exactly how they were going to do it, and I understand that. And they probably used a refactor code tool and all kinds of stuff in different IDEs. Some things are really easy to change. Just to show you an example, just come to this, just stay in here, the defaults. Probably you don't want to change map size and stuff. But let's say you come down here to something more interesting. Max Wares order might be a good one. I mean, 999 is good. I don't think I'm going to change it, but you probably can change it. I don't know if it's safe. Some things when you change it, there's a consequence, but mostly like this is going to be the defaults that game speed is going to be set to for single player. But one that got my attention was this one for the towers. If you want to increase the tower range, since I didn't make any changes, well, it's saying that I did somewhere, that it actually compiled again, but when you click compile, if you didn't make any changes at all, didn't type in a space or whatever, it should automatically just reopen the game. But anyway, it's probably faster just to make my own map to put a tower on there. Let's say this player, some distinct color that doesn't look like red. Let's put a recruit with a road to a storehouse and lots of stone and some serfs to refill. And for me, I will have a group of knights and increase it. And for me, I'm going to click here and then there and then reveal all. That's very useful. And another thing is I'll go back. Click this so that when you start the map, it starts here. Save and start. Okay. So this is the default range. This is how the game has always been. Even the original game, the radius of the towers is the same. So I'm going to X out of this. You have to X out of the game every time you compile it again, because if not, you're going to get an error that you could not compile it. And that's the cause. So let me change this to like 73 or something and compile it again. Yeah, it's farther. I don't know why it's not farther than this. Yeah, but anyway, as you can see, it's quite a distance. What you can do is search for store res count, and it's here. And I want to show you this because we know the default order of the storehouse. Like if I start the game right now, and I can just click that because I didn't change anything, it opens it up. It's a quick way to open it up. Or I won't say that again, I promise. But I click on the storehouse. The log is before the stone. But how about we switch them? Here's the log. Put it here in place of the stone and cut this and then put it there and compile it. Now I don't know if there's any consequences for switching it, but because the way they coded this, you never know. Some things are safe to change and other things are not, but making the game easy to modify and the code easy to follow was not one of their main objectives, apparently. But anyway, I started the game when I didn't really have to, but it's game additional. I don't know what player this is. Oh, it's player 13. So you can see it switched. The stone is first, the logs are second. I just pressed F11 to close that. There you go. You can see in the map editor too. So it doesn't just work in the game, it works both ways. So for those who have fast forwarded all that information to get to here, just to hear about what I titled this video. So first of all, for those who don't know about knightsandmerchants.net, this is an old forum that has a lot of history. I was a part of it from 2013 to 2017 or so. I was a regular poster there. But right here he says, and they use commas instead of decimal, so I'm sure most people watching this may use comma as well. They're not like people in America. But he went by per minute instead of seconds per run that I have in my build ratio tool. See, time per run in seconds. They just go by per minute. So this is one, and KaM said that they approximated these rates for the buildings just by doing a similar thing that he did. He ran it for 3 hours and seeing how much they made. You know, just the basic thing to get a general amount. And another thread, Lewin, who is the second remake developer. So for those who don't know, KaM is one of them. It's in red. Their username is in red to kind of distinguish them from everybody else. Dark Lord was a moderator, so that's why he's in green. But Lewin gave the same exact values that KaM did, just in a different thread at a different time. But again, this is per minute. But these values are not exact, but these values, like if I go here and I search for 88 divided by 120 in the source code, so I say search, find in files, and Control-Shift-F is a shortcut key to get here. It just so happened, you know, he might have put a space in between the division sign and whatever, but he didn't. It's exactly like this in the game source code. If we were to change one of these, would it actually change the rate of the building in the game? And the answer is no, but I want to show you. Now, which is what? KaM showed it in the thread, which is which. Trunk here means woodcutters. It's the house that produces it. So stone, wood, iron ore. So let's take a look at the iron mine. It's the fourth one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the first. There's two of them here, 160 over 120. All right, I'm just going to edit the mission that we have to make a mountain. You can just do that, and then it's over. I can put, how about I put my own instead of the blue players, and put a storehouse, and take this tower, and maybe I'll just delete it so that it doesn't mess with this demonstration and we don't need these knights anymore. A handful of villagers there and a miner. So right now, for those who don't know or new to this game, he's gonna go for about 40 seconds. I'm pressing F8 to fast forward, but there you go, right? We're at 40 something and then he stopped. But now let's say that I come to the source code and it's the 1, 2, 3, 4th building, and I were to increase this number like by a lot. That way it will be, because it's per minute, that's the production rate per minute, and I would compile the game. I'm going to make this mistake for you. See right here, it says fatal error, could not create output file. That's because I have the game open, close the game. Every time you want to make a new remake version, you gotta close the remake. Okay, I'm going to compile again so that it comes up. We're just going to observe that he goes the same amount of time. It's still going to be 40 seconds. I mean, we changed the number by a lot. I mean, by a lot we changed it and it didn't change anything. So what this number set here is for the AI probably, when the developers need to have it approximate about how many resources the AI is going to produce if you were to quit a game or you were to fast forward or whatever and you wouldn't be looking at the game or something like that. It's a projection or interpolation. It's not actually what they would produce. Believe me, it's not. These are not the exact rates. I'm going to show you what those are. Maybe the developers will see this and change them to the correct values. But I'm actually going to close this project. This is just a fresh project to show you how to install this. And I'm going to open up the one I've been working in. And you're going to kind of probably want to put your Remake Master folder inside of this folder path where Delphi 12 will put it by default so you can browse to it faster, or change the directory, either one. I only had to modify 2 files in order to figure out what the exact rates are for the houses. They call them houses, we call them buildings normally, but the developers call them houses, so we have to call them houses. So I'm going to say Control-Shift-F to search in files, and I'm going to search for CMOLA, because I put CMOLA by every line of code that I modified so that I could share this with y'all. Just 2 files. I'm just going to go to this one first, the Schoolhouse is that I get to later, but maybe it's not here. I'm going to go just find plan. Okay, yeah, that was obvious, right? This is where you change the building's rates. And guess what? You don't change them by changing a number. You have to change them. Basically, what this means here, like the HA work thing, it's, let me show you. You have to, let me compile the game and show you something. And just a note, maybe you should, before you do this if you haven't done already, is make a backup. I know it's a lot of files, it's a gigabyte of stuff. But if you make a mistake and you can't figure it out, you can automatically copy that and start over. But anyway, when I come in here, this is where the custom sprites can be, or in other words, animations. For those who don't know, you can make your own frame-by-frame animations to substitute for the ones that exist, or to make your own, but you'd have to literally edit the source code and read the files into the game and all that. And then, not only that, but you'd have to follow Ray's advice down here. I think it's step number 6. To use a special program that's going to take several minutes to run, 5 to 10 minutes, to make a new sprites file. But if not, you can just, if you want to replace existing ones, you just put them in here. And maybe I can show that in another video. That is relevant to what I want to tell you right now, though. That's why I'm mentioning this. I just sorted by name. I don't see the folder. There's no export folder. Alright, so what I want to do is press F11, and I don't have the unsecure debug thing taken off with my current project, but I showed you how to do it, right? What you want to do is not look over here to the right. You want to come to export data and say animations. We are going to take a look at the house, because we were going to look at the house rates, and the way this works, the number of animations that the original game had in the sprites file is what determines how long the buildings run, because I guess the logic was if you don't have an animation, then the building can no longer run. There's not an actual number that you put in to change how long the building runs. I know it's crazy, or at least to me it is, because maybe I'm a control freak, I don't know. But now there's going to be an export folder and we can see the buildings. Now let me go to the iron mine, what we're currently looking at. You don't need to pay attention to the flag, because source code itself even says that the flag animations has nothing to do with this. And neither does ISLE. It has to do with work. If we sort by type, there's only 4 images, because each of these text files is a thing that works with this animated image file. This is the iron mine. So there's 4 different ones. Here's the second one, and so forth. The main thing is you can see that there's 4 of them, and there's only one HA work folder in here associated with the iron mine building. The number of these type of work folders you have, like let me go to another house, like the armory workshop. It has work 2, 3, and 4. So it's going to use all of the work folders for the animation or for when the building running, because that's when the building is working. So we come down here to the source code. Let me go to UT miner, which UT means unit type miner. Let me go to iron mine is here. Even though they have these folders here, they don't exist. They're here for no reason. This is the only one that exists. Now they have a failsafe that if the folder doesn't exist, make this a value of 1. And I know you don't know what this means right now exactly, but I just want to demonstrate that this works. I'll first show you this though. Sub action add, that's what this represents. This right here is an action type. Let me scroll up to find this. Yeah, it's right here. It's an action type. And I guess I can show you now. I mean, this is a, it's just, wow, you know, just for this one thing, this is how they're all interacted. But here, the HA work 2 thing, that's this subroutine, but the action type is down here. But you see, this is the names of the folders here. HA underscore work 2, HA underscore work 3. Right? That's pretty much similar to what these names are here. So having said that, the reason why I want to show you is this, time to work. And I had this line here, so ignore this line, which is something I ultimately didn't use, by the way, but I'll explain that later, maybe. But time to work, it's equal to the number of files. There's 4 in here. It's the number of files in there times A cycles, and we're going to round it. This is the number of ticks. Ticks is 1/10 of a second, so for 50 ticks is 5 seconds, for example. Now, that's not exactly what this is. We're going to see exactly what this is because I added some stuff in here. And so this is a new section of this video for those who like the developers to see and other people that already know all this stuff beforehand about how I used just a few additional lines of code to get the exact rates for the buildings that consume resources, not the primary buildings. But before I get to that, I want to come down here and just change that number, like I said. And you can do it as well. We come here to the iron mine. This number right here, this is a multiplier. So if I decrease it, then the house is going to work less. And if I do like, see this here, HA work 1? Because it doesn't exist here, I can increase it to like 5,000 if I want to. 5,555. And I can compile the game after I close it and say, okay. So I have a different test map here. So let me go to the map editor and add in a mine. And I'm going to remove these guys so they don't make noise in the background or whatever. So before, I want you to observe that, but he should stop working at 40 seconds, right? So this multiplier here has no effect at all because a folder HA underscore work 1 does not exist for this building, but it does for other buildings. The only one that exists for the iron mine is HA underscore work 2. So if I were to decrease this, let's say to 2. Let's see how long it takes the building to stop. Look at that. It's already done, right? And he won't ever stop. He produces what he's supposed to. So there you go. That's how you change the building rates, but that's really not the exact focus of this video, is to get the exact rates in which they run by default. But basically, you have to cut out animations in order to decrease how long the building runs. It's like, wow, I would have never guessed. I mean, it's very interesting that they did it this way, but it's just something I would have never guessed. Especially when I seen that they posted this, I thought for sure, I was like, these probably were the real values I thought they were, but they're not. They're just approximations. They pretty much did what this guy did. And what my script does, my script is much more precise and was only a little bit off from the actual values for these buildings, as I will show you soon. But anyhow, if I change it back to 24 to not mess with that, all I have to do is go to the very beginning of this, and I want to display a message, like when we want to see if a house is unoccupied or whatever, and this is the code to do that I added in. For those that know the scripting language, like states.gametime, we can actually access that from the source code. Of course we can. This right here is how you get the states.gametime. It's the same exact thing. For those who know the scripting language, into string is the same. So that's all you have to do. That's the beginning of this fine plan. So what's going to happen, it's going to put out a message, show the current time before a building works. And we're going to only have one building running at a time, so we know which is which. I mean, we could write a switch statement and apply the house type and convert it into text to display in the message. Or we could output this to the log file by borrowing code for that from the scripting language or something like that. We could do that. But I just kept it simple to show a message in the game, and I just did one building at a time. So anyway, this is going to show a message of the game time in ticks before the building runs at all, before it's assigned to run. In order to output game time, you need to include this and these two for the message. Now let me just show you that it works. As soon as he starts to work, we're going to get a message. Now it's muted, but see there, it's 27 ticks, so 2.7 seconds he started. And I'm going to fast forward. It should go to 40 because that's what the default is. And okay, he started again. But when he started again, then it was a new value displayed, the current states.gameTime or ticks. So all I have to do is take this number and subtract that number. 463 minus, and I think I stored 27 as x. Yeah, I did, minus x, because I did this over and over and over again. We're going to divide this number by 10 to give us the seconds per run that this building has, and it's 43.6. If we come here, if you downloaded this Microsoft Excel tool in the past, it might be a little bit different. It probably was. But in one of my later updates that I just updated the file in my Google Drive, this is the exact same time for these two mines. I happen to get that right with the script. And also with the coal mine, it's also 45.2. But for every other building, everything from the yellow, red, and blue, all those, they're all just 0.2 of a second fast. Add 0.2 to every single one of them, and then you'll get the exact number that you get from the source code. I can just show you one more example, and I don't have to edit the game again. What I can do is just start this game over, and I said I did one at a time. Let me first remove the miner so that there's no confusion. There's just going to be one, and again I'm going to put it immediately so that he starts at 27 ticks and see how long he goes, or I should say when he starts again. 389 minus 27, which was x, 36.2. Here in my current time chart, which I'm going to change, it says 36, so I have to add 0.2 to it in order to be the true value. That's how all of these houses that you see in view work. Every single one of them, except for the school. You have to do something for school, and I couldn't figure out how to get the message to show, so I did something different. I'm going to go to the source code, open up, let me see the other file here that CMOLA was in, that I put it in, I should say. In this one, I couldn't get it to work, but I got the states.gameTime to work. So you have to use this one in order to access that, get the current game time. There's two procedures, one for the schoolhouse to start, and there's one when it's complete. So I had basically the same code to both of them. I want to mimic from the scripting language to add a resource to a house. That's what I want to do, because there's a storehouse here, and where is it located? Where is that storehouse located? I have this over it. You can see over here where the X and Y is. It's at 24,100. So that's where this 24,100 is in both of them. So for start and for unit training complete, I have that there. Now, when the school starts to train a unit, I want to store the current game time worth of stone in that storehouse located here to be able to see the numbers. It was just out of desperation to get it done. One way to do this. And then when it's finished, it will store the current game time as timber in that storehouse, which I have here. So let's observe. I already had this compiled. Let me test it. So right now they're both 0. I start training a unit. All of a sudden you see 42. So I should type in that right now, because it's going to, I didn't make it clear it every time it starts again. It's going to overwrite it again. So I'm going to say negative 42 plus. See, now we lost that 42 if I wouldn't have changed it. So the 197 minus that is 155 divided by 10 is 15.5 seconds. My script produced a result of 15.4 seconds. So that was only off by 0.1 of a second, obviously, instead of 0.2 like the rest of them all below here. So that's the true values for these buildings. So just add 0.2 to all of these, and you'll have the true values, with the exception of the schoolhouse where you only add 1. So it'd be 15.5 seconds even. And just as the ultimate test, let me come in here to the official latest remake version. Let me put some serfs, and let me supply him with some initial and save this map. Now with the scripting editor, I'm going to come in here and add an auto feed real quick. Okay, so now he's going to work forever, not stop to eat or anything, so we can get a theoretical number on how many he can produce. I made this spreadsheet here where these are the values that Crom and Lewin showed here and here respectively, and then this is the values that I showed you that were from here, and this is the number of minutes. So all I did was, when I said actual, this was from this, okay? All I did was I said 60 divided by this number to get how much per minute, just like how they had theirs to make them the same. And then what I did was I multiplied it by how much quantity per run. The sawmill produces 2 timber. The butcher produces 3 sausages. But mostly everything else produces 1. And I have 1 villager down here for the schoolhouse also. But anyway, SC stands for source code. These are the values, as I was mentioning, for the swords and crossbows, which they're called this per crossbow, and then pike. Any one of them, it doesn't matter. They are 36.2 officially, but in this, which was this, I said it was 36. At 4 hours, which is 240 minutes, if I were to project these linearly, if mine was right, it would be 400 pikes produced in 4 hours. But if what I got from the source code is correct, it's going to be 397. You have to round down. So these are numbers with decimals, but you have to round down because if it's not a whole, it doesn't exist yet. It has to be 397 exactly if this value is exact, or if it's better than mine that I got from the script that I wrote. As soon as I can, I'm going to make some pikes and let it run for 4 hours. I had 1,000 of each of these in here, so if he's gonna make 400, then I had enough. See, you don't have to eat, right? They work forever, they don't die. Okay, we're getting close, so I'm gonna slow it down so I don't miss it, because we have to be exact. But we're approaching 400. Are we gonna reach 400? Or are we gonna just stop at 397? We have 397 right now. Is it going to go to 398 or is it going to stay at 397? See, several seconds after, it's still at 397. So who's the winner? The source code is the winner, of course, because it's the source code. Basically, my script here says the total time for each run is going to be the current game time when the house has a resource that it produced, minus the time that it started. So I explained this in that previous video that I mentioned at the beginning. But this, if you were to log it to the log file or message it to the game at the start, it's going to be 30 or 3 seconds to start time. But it was actually, as we saw when we were looking at the source code, it was 27. So with that in mind, let's say that it ends at time B and it starts at time A. So the time that it runs is B minus A. If we were just to play with numbers a little bit, we would see that because A in my script was 30 instead of 27, I have to subtract 3 to make it 27. And then with just a little bit of algebra, I would see that I need to subtract 1. That when I simplify it down, it's going to be the total amount that I had before plus 2 ticks, or 0.2 seconds if we were to divide it by 10. So that's why I concluded this. That when we were observing the building, you saw it was removed. It's so fast, it's really hard to see, but when it's removed, that's not when the building cycle actually starts. It starts 0.3 of a second before that. And I can't spell tonight, but yeah, there it is. Resource appears. In this case, it's going to be a pike. So before the pike appears, it's going to be 0.1 of a second before the pike appears that he's done. So that's actually how it works. But I didn't know that, and because of that, I was off by 0.2 of a second for all of these buildings of this nature. Well, this video is longer than what I thought it was going to be. It always seems to be that way when I'm going to go into detail to explain everything, but I hope you learned something. You can make your own remake version now. If you didn't know you could before, I gave you the tools to figure it out. At least you have to get started with that programming language, and even more so with object-oriented. That's the type of design they chose. Like if you go to any of these files at the beginning, they have constructors, properties, and inheritance and things like that. So that should be something that most people who are in programming would know. That's the in thing these days. But I'm more of a procedural programming kind of guy, and the fact that Pascal is not really an object-oriented programming language like Java or something else is that you could program it either way. Me personally, if I were to have used this language, I would have done procedural programming. But I don't program games for a living. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.